Ever get that feeling? You know that feeling like you're sitting up high somewhere and kind of looking down and judging everyone?
Oh, yeah.
I've got it all figured out feeling. Well, this article, The Fall-Resistant Throne, it really got me thinking about that.
Hmm.
Why are we so quick to judge,
Yeah.
especially when we're, at a distance from the situation?
Right.
And how can we be more, mindful about it?
Yeah.
That's what this deep dive is all about today.
Okay.
It's about understanding that impulse to judge and hopefully, helping all of us be a little bit more empathetic
Mhm.
and effective in our own lives.
You know that feeling of being on a fall-resistant throne? It's such a powerful metaphor. I
Yeah.
mean, it really speaks to the comfort and the detachment we often feel when we're judging others.
Right.
We're just observing from way far away,
Mhm.
seemingly safe, from the consequences of our opinions.
Absolutely. It's like we forget that everybody's fighting their own battles,
Right.
facing challenges that we might not even be aware of.
Yeah.
The article starts off with this Mike Tyson quote.
Okay.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Ooh, that's a good one.
How do you see that quote relating to this, human tendency that we have to judge other people?
Well, it's just a stark reminder that, reality rarely conforms to our neat little theories about things.
Mhm.
When we judge from a distance, we're often operating with, you know, limited information and a whole lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
It's like we haven't stepped into the ring ourselves,
Yeah.
so we don't truly grasp the complexity of the fight.
It's easy to offer advice or criticism when you're not the one in the hot seat,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
That reminds me of that example from the article, the woman who was renovating her apartment
Oh, yeah.
and she got completely ripped apart online for her, design choices.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic example of the fall-resistant throne in action.
Oh, totally.
People were so quick to judge her taste, her budget, her entire life, basically,
Right.
without having any real understanding of her circumstances.
And I think it's so interesting too, because it's like everyone's suddenly an interior design expert when they're scrolling through social media. It's
Right.
like, where did these credentials come from?
Right, yeah, exactly.
But I think it goes a little bit deeper than just, design.
Sure.
I think it's this need to feel relevant,
Hmm.
to, assert our own knowledge or taste,
Yeah,
even if it means doing it at the expense of someone else.
absolutely. There's often, an element of self-affirmation that we get through judgment.
Right.
By pointing out what we perceive as flaws in other people,
Yeah.
we're kind of subtly reinforcing our own sense of superiority, our own sense of correctness.
Mm-hmm.
And social media with its, quick comments and the like buttons and all that,
Uh-huh.
it just provides the perfect platform for this kind of superficial judgment.
Yeah. So how do we start to, dismantle this fall-resistant throne?
Right.
How do we become more aware of our own biases
Yeah.
and avoid, making these snap judgments?
Well, a good starting point, I think, is recognizing that this tendency to judge, it's a very human trait.
Sure.
It's often driven by, unconscious biases and these ingrained patterns of thinking.
Mhm.
One of the biggest culprits is something called the fundamental attribution error.
Okay. Unpack that for me.
Yeah.
What's the fundamental attribution error?
Sure.
And how does that play into all of this?
Okay, so it's basically this fascinating quirk that all of our brains have,
Okay.
where we tend to overemphasize personal characteristics when we're trying to explain somebody else's behavior, while at the same time downplaying the role of situational factors. For
Okay.
example, let's say someone cuts us off in traffic.
Yeah.
We're much more likely to think, oh, what a jerk,
Right.
rather than considering that maybe they're rushing to the hospital or something like that.
Right. Or they're having a really bad day.
Exactly. So we're attributing their behavior to their personality
Right.
rather than, the circumstances.
Gotcha.
And conversely, when we make mistakes, we're more likely to blame external factors.
Oh, so it's like a double standard.
It is. It's a double standard.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and it fuels, our quick judgments, and it prevents us from seeing the full picture.
It's like we're giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt
Yeah.
that we don't extend to other people.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And this ties back to the fall-resistant throne.
Okay.
When we're up on that throne, we have this illusion of objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
We see ourselves as the rational observer,
Right.
while those below us are subject to our scrutiny and judgment.
But what about the times when we do need to make judgments?
Sure.
I mean, we can't just walk through life without forming opinions or making decisions about people.
You're absolutely right. Judgment is a necessary part of life.
Right.
It helps us navigate the world, make choices, protect ourselves even.
Right.
But the key is to distinguish between discerning judgment, the kind that's based on careful consideration and a genuine desire to understand.
Right.
And then those knee-jerk reactions that stem from our biases and our insecurities.
So it's about being more intentional with our judgments.
Yes.
Right. Pausing before we jump to conclusions.
Exactly.
Asking ourselves if we have all the information.
Yeah.
And considering the other person's perspective.
That's a powerful first step.
Okay.
And it's a practice that requires, constant self-awareness and a willingness to challenge your own assumptions.
This is already giving me so much to think about.
Oh, good.
And it sounds like, understanding this fall-resistant throne mentality, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Well,
How do we start putting these ideas into practice?
the article delves into some fascinating historical examples that really illustrate the dangers of judging from afar. Cases where those on the fall-resistant throne were proven wrong.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes spectacularly so.
Okay.
Think about figures like Thomas Edison, who faced ridicule and skepticism for his seemingly outlandish ideas.
Yeah, just like Mike Tyson said,
Yeah.
everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth by reality.
That's right.
But I'm curious about those historical examples. What are some of them?
Yeah.
And what can we learn from them?
Well, take Thomas Edison, for example, when he was developing the light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of experts at the time dismissed it as a ridiculous idea.
Really?
I mean, they were so entrenched in the existing paradigm of gaslighting
Right.
that they couldn't even fathom the possibility of a viable alternative.
Wow.
They were essentially perched on their fall-resistant thrones, blinded by their own expertise.
That's so interesting. It's like their knowledge and experience, the very things that made them authorities, became like a barrier to seeing the potential of something new.
Precisely. And it's a pattern that repeats itself throughout history. I mean, think about the early pioneers of flight.
Okay.
The Wright brothers. They were met with disbelief and scorn from many scientists and engineers of their time. People literally thought it was impossible for humans to fly.
So what can we learn from these examples? How do we avoid becoming those experts who are so stuck in their ways that they miss out on the next big thing?
I think it comes down to cultivating a mindset of curiosity and humility.
Okay.
Recognizing that we don't have all the answers, that there's always more to learn, and that even the most outlandish ideas might hold the seeds of something revolutionary.
So being open to the possibility that we could be wrong.
Yeah.
Even when we're the so-called experts.
Exactly. And that ties back to a point we touched on earlier.
Okay.
The importance of seeking understanding before judging. Stephen Covey's famous quote, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yeah.
It's so relevant here.
That is a good one.
It's a reminder that true understanding requires us to step down from our fall-resistant thrones and genuinely engage with different perspectives.
That quote reminds me of another quote by Maya Angelou about the tapestry of diversity, where each thread, each individual story, it's equally valuable.
I love that.
It's like we need to approach each other with this sense of awe and wonder, recognizing that everyone has a unique perspective to offer.
Those quotes beautifully capture the essence of what we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
It's about shifting from a mindset of judgment to a mindset of curiosity, empathy, and appreciation for the richness of human experience.
So how do we cultivate this mindset in our daily lives? I mean, how do we move from theory to practice?
Well, it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Noticing when those judgmental thoughts arise. And choosing to pause before reacting. Instead of jumping to conclusions. Ask yourself, what am I assuming here? What information am I missing? What might this person be going through that I'm not aware of?
So it's like taking a mental step back from that fall-resistant throne.
Exactly.
And acknowledging that we might not have the whole story.
Exactly. And that simple act of pausing can make a world of difference.
Right.
It creates space for empathy to emerge, for curiosity to guide our inquiry, and for a more nuanced understanding to develop.
It's about recognizing that everybody is fighting a battle we know nothing about.
Yeah.
And instead of judging them from our comfortable perches,
Right.
we can choose to approach them with kindness and a genuine desire to understand.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And, this shift in mindset, this commitment to understanding over judgment, I mean, it has profound implications for leadership.
It does.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
The article touched on the importance of this for leadership.
Sure.
But I'd love to hear you elaborate on that connection a little bit more.
Okay.
How does embracing this mindset actually make someone a better leader?
Well, think about the qualities of a truly effective leader. Someone who inspires trust, fosters collaboration, and empowers others to reach their full potential.
Okay.
These qualities are rooted in emotional intelligence.
You mean that concept that was popularized by Daniel Goleman back in the 90s?
Yes. Goleman's work highlighted the crucial role of self-awareness, empathy, and social skills in effective leadership.
Yeah.
Leaders who are skilled at managing their own emotions and understanding the emotions of others
Right.
are better equipped to create a positive and productive work environment.
So it's not just about being nice.
Right.
It's about having the emotional intelligence to navigate complex social dynamics,
Exactly.
build strong relationships, and motivate people effectively.
Precisely. And this kind of leadership requires a willingness to step down from the fall-resistant throne and engage with people on a human level.
Right.
It means listening actively, seeking to understand different perspectives, and creating a space where people feel safe to share their ideas and vulnerabilities without fear of judgment.
So it's about fostering a culture of psychological safety.
Yeah.
Where people feel respected and valued for who they are, rather than, constantly being judged or evaluated.
Exactly. And that kind of environment is where innovation thrives,
Right.
where creativity flourishes,
Yeah.
and where teams can achieve truly remarkable things.
This is also fascinating. It's like this seemingly simple idea of, avoiding snap judgments.
Right.
It has these ripple effects that extend outwards into our relationships, our work, even our understanding of history and innovation.
It's all interconnected. And this deep dive is really about exploring those connections and helping you see the world and yourself through a more compassionate and understanding lens.
We've talked a lot about extending compassion and understanding to others.
Yeah.
But what about extending it to ourselves?
Right.
The article touched on the importance of self-compassion.
Sure.
And I think that's a crucial piece of this puzzle.
Yeah.
How do we cultivate self-compassion? Especially when, we inevitably catch ourselves making those snap judgments.
Well, it begins with acknowledging that we are all works in progress. None of us are immune to these ingrained patterns of thinking.
Right.
When you catch yourself making a snap judgment, instead of, berating yourself, try approaching it with a sense of curiosity. Ask yourself, what triggered that judgment? What insecurities or biases might be at play here?
So it's about treating ourselves with the same understanding we're trying to extend to other people.
Exactly. Imagine a friend came to you feeling guilty about, a quick judgment they made.
Yeah.
You wouldn't condemn them, would you?
Of course not.
You'd likely offer support and remind them that, everyone makes mistakes.
Right.
We need to extend that same grace to ourselves.
That's a really helpful way to reframe it. Instead of, beating ourselves up, we can view those slip-ups as opportunities for learning and growth.
Precisely. Self-compassion isn't about lowering your standards or letting yourself off the hook.
Right.
It's about creating a safe inner space where you can acknowledge your imperfections without shame and learn from your experiences. It's about recognizing that, we are all perfectly imperfect.
I love that phrase, perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off, striving for some unattainable ideal.
Yeah.
And allows us to just embrace, the messy, beautiful reality of being human.
And it's in those imperfections, in those moments of vulnerability that we often find our greatest opportunities for growth. Remember, we're not aiming for perfection here. We're aiming for progress.
Yeah, this whole conversation has been about progress, hasn't it?
It has.
Challenging our ingrained habits, expanding our perspectives, and ultimately, becoming more thoughtful, empathetic individuals.
It's about dismantling our fall-resistant thrones.
Right.
And engaging with the world and ourselves with a renewed sense of curiosity and compassion.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's one key takeaway that you hope our listener walks away with?
I'd say it's this. The next time you find yourself perched atop that fall-resistant throne, ready to pass judgment, take a deep breath, pause, and ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling myself about this person or this situation?
Right.
Is it the whole story or am I missing something?
It's a powerful reminder that our perceptions are often limited and that true understanding requires a willingness to, step outside of our own assumptions and biases.
And remember, this isn't just about being kind to others.
Yeah.
It's about being kind to ourselves as well.
Absolutely.
We all make mistakes. We all have moments of judgment, and that's okay.
Yeah.
The key is to approach those moments with self-compassion and a commitment to learning and growing.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those questions and explore your own fall-resistant thrones. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep learning.